let me bring on my friend for over, oh my God, 96? Since 96? I've been friends with Dan Mirvish. Dan Mirvish, if you don't know who he is a legend. He is a legend in indie cinema who has written, produced, directed numerous indie films. Look up Dan Mirvish on look him up. Look him up on IMDb. Open House is a real estate musical you may have heard of that he made. He also did a movie called Omaha the Movie. Along with this new film that I actually saw in the theaters. It was playing at it was in Glendale, was it the Glendale Lemley or Newark, 18 and a half. Dan Mirvish is joining us on the show today to tell us all about his new film. Dan, my friend, so good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Great to see you and our other good friend, Alan.
Yeah.
Hey, Alan.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Dan.
Well, I haven't known as long as Chris, but
That's okay. Dan, tell people about, and first of all, I want to get into some of your other movies, but 18 and a half is, I know it's coming out digital soon. It's its theatrical run at the moment. What is the story of 18 and a half?
So the story is, it is about a young woman, young 25-year-old woman working in the Nixon White House in 1974, and she gets a hold of the missing 18 and a half minute gap in the Nixon Watergate tapes and tries to leak it to a reporter, and then they run afoul of hippies, swingers, and nefarious people out to get them.
Who would not want to see a movie like that?
Exactly.
And I've seen the movie. It's I mean, there are really serious aspects to it. And if you don't know anything about the Nixon tapes, you don't need to. The movie explains it very well. The movie puts it into context. It is a period piece, which is amazing. The way that you just got this 1974, like all the hairstyles, even the way people interact with each other, very, very early 70s. So, you know, having come from that era, I totally relate to it. And it's shot all at this, like, it takes place mostly at this one location in a motel, which is very from the period. And it's also, for the serious subject matter, something of a comedy. I will say there's a lot of comedy in this, and just sort of the over the topness and the ridiculousness of this. Now, this is also a movie that, because you and I were chatting while you were making the movie.
Yeah.
The pandemic just happened. So you were in the middle of making this movie, which you financed through a crowdfund. I want to ask you about that. And then like you had to finish the movie later. Can you tell us about that? It's an interesting story.
Yeah. So we started shooting March 3rd, 2020. What could possibly go wrong in March of 2020? And we got about 11 days in, and we actually heard from the DGA rep that, because we were so isolated, we were shooting in on the tip of Long Island, outside, like 3 hours outside of New York City, and kind of in our own bubble. We were kind of doing a lot of things right anyway. And then we found out that we were one of the last films shooting in North America. And I was like, wait, what? What does everyone else know that we don't know? What's coming? So we, like everyone else, we shut down with 11 days in the can, and we had, which was about, 75, 80% of the movie. We had 4 days left to shoot. So I grabbed a hard drive, came back to LA, started editing the movie, but a third of our crew, so about 7 or 8 of them, kind of the Brooklyn, single types, they just stayed at this place, the Silver Sands Motel, because it was empty and they were afraid to go back to New York. So about 7 or 8 of them stayed for about 10 weeks. And our cinematographer, Elle Schneider, she stayed for 6 months. She just never left. And anyway, and 6 months later, it was, the DGA and SAG had come up with the protocols for, to work safely in COVID. And we were one of the first films back shooting, and we finished off our 4 weeks during that time. But, during that 6 months, we got a lot of else done. We recorded our voiceover performers during that time, because everyone had Zoom by then. They didn't have StreamYard, they had Zoom. And we were able to get a lot done, and a lot of the music got done during that time as well.
Tell me about, because this is the thing I've always admired about you. A lot of filmmakers today are like, I couldn't make my movie because of X excuse. You have never, in all my history of knowing you, nothing stops you. No lack of money, for lack of whatever. Your moxie is insane, over the top. And I want to say, post your questions in the chat here. We're going to go to your chat questions after this, but I want to say, like, nothing stops you. It's like, okay, like when you ask an indie filmmaker how much money you need to make your movie, the answer is, how much do you have?
How much do you have? Yep.
How much do you have? It's like, you've got 5,000. Okay, that's what we're making.
That's your budget.
Yeah, 50,000. You're making it for that. How did you secure the funds? I knew you did a crowdfunding, and I'm on your newsletter list. How did you raise the funding? I knew it was a crowdfund, but can you give some sort of bullet point tips? And then we're going to go to our chat questions here.
Sure.
People are loving the chat, by the way.
Yeah,
so
we did. I've used Kickstarter before. On this one, we used Seed and Spark. And, I mean, you can only really hope to raise 5 or 10% of the budget through crowdfunding directly. It's Kickstarter, not Kickfinisher, or Seed and Spark, not, Tree and Forest or whatever. So, but it's a little bit of I use it more like a Trojan horse, because, if your old bass player buddy from college, Dave, gives you $40 and then he posts the pitch video on his Facebook page, well, his brother-in-law in Silicon Valley, who you've never met, may invest $10,000, and so it really is kind of a spark. And what's nice about it is that's all cast agnostic financing, which means they don't care if you get a big name actor or Tom Cruise in your film. They're doing it because they like you, they like the project, they like the story, whatever. And I think that's really key too, because the thing I learned a long time ago from Robert Altman was, set a start date, tell everyone the train's leaving the station, and you on board or aren't you? And that by having that cast agnostic, even little chunk of financing, that's enough to give you the confidence and the moxie to say, yeah, we got a start date March 3rd, 2020. Ain't nothing stopping us, So, but then we also teamed up with a 501c3 fiscal sponsor, the Filmmakers Film Collaborative. So a lot of people gave money that way, which is great. It's a good option to tell rich people, hey, you're not going to make your money anyway. Why don't you just donate it and get a write-off now? So that's good. But also it can last a lot longer than a limited 30-day campaign. In that way, it's more like Patreon or OnlyFans. I don't have to tell you about that. And so you can kind of leave it up and keep raising money that way. And then there's some people who just invest in the films, because it may be better for them that way. So one way or the other, we cobbled it together and started making the movie.
Let's go to the chat comments and questions.
And I think we do have a special guest joining us.
Oh, who's that?
Dana, you want to come in? So this is my co-executive producer. He's been my producing partner on all my films. And he is Dana Altman. I am in his office in Omaha, Nebraska right now because we have a screening in Omaha. And Dana is a fantastic producer, not just.
Wait, you're in Nebraska right now, Dan?
I am in Nebraska right now. I know. What are the odds, right?
That's awesome. Cool. Well, wave to Dana.
Yeah, we're on.
Maybe Dana's busy.
Anyway, so Dana happens to be the grandson of Robert Altman and has his amazing poster collection here. Here's Dana. There he is. Stick your head in. There he is, right there.
Hey, Dana. Pleasure to meet you.
That's
Hey,
Chris
how
Gore.
are you? Nice to meet you, Chris.
All right. I love your grandfather's films.
I do too. He, if I could just be so prolific and good at it, but I'm not.
Well, you get there. God, Robert Altman. I can't. The number of movies. I mean, oh my God, The Player, probably one of my absolute favorites. Nashville. I mean, like you could go on and on. I don't even like country music. I love Nashville. So that's great. Anyways, let's go to our comments and questions.
Dana's
here.
the one who helps me make all the movies that we make here.
Well, I'm glad finally the silent partner is exposed. So it's great to meet you, Dana. Let's get some comments and questions here. Solomon Thornton says, love the concept of this film. I'm sold. Trailer looks cool. Love some Nixon. Watergate stuff. Internet Rec Room says, and Bruce Campbell, super cool. Oh man. Okay, yeah. Flaccid Phoenix says Bruce Campbell as Nixon equals gold. I can confirm Bruce Campbell is amazing in this movie. Freedom Punk says, I will definitely be checking this flick out. Love me some Bruce Campbell. And the title, is there, like Jack D. Ripper asks, is there any Fellini-ness in this movie? Because the title is kind of a reference to Fellini's 8.5. Is it? Or like, what did you think?
I'll ask you, Chris, but not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit like they're at a bye, Dana. Dana's producing another film right now, so he's got to run. But you know, they both take place at a seaside motel, and they both have weird people who show up. But Fellini was a smart guy. He knew that if you started a title with a number, it's always going to show up at the beginning of the alphabet. So, you know, I bow my hat to him there. So, but those are the main references. But no, I mean, it kind of betrays that my roots are as much in politics as they are in film. That when someone says 18.5 to me, the first thing in my mind is the Nixon tapes. So.
Let's go to some more questions here. Internet Rec Room has a question for you. Based on a true story, revisionist vision? I don't know much about Watergate.
So it is a good question. So there's a couple different ways to do historical fiction. There's the Tarantino method, and I'm no academic, but you know, where he completely rewrites history, and by the end of the movie, everything we know is completely different. Hitler lives, or Manson dies, or you know, whatever, that kind of thing. Then there's then there's the people that like just do like docudramas where you take real people and real things and then you change just one little thing and everyone complains about it. What we've done is, and the approach I took with this is that, you know, without spoiling the end of the movie, by the end of the movie, history has, you know, we've created this little loop with fictional characters playing in a real world. But by the end of the movie, our timeline of history is pretty much reset to what we know, which makes it plausible, speculative historical fiction, if that's a term. I don't know. But it is a good question. So it is an original story that I came up with myself and my writing partner, Daniel Moya, who then wrote the full screenplay. And it was really based on this location. We found my buddy Terry Keefe, and Chris, you may remember him from the olden days. He was an indie film producer, but he's also just inherited this great motel out on the tip of Long Island from his grandparents that was built in the 50s and 60s. And then he took it over, and being a savvy indie film guy, you know, he's ran it as a hotel for 10 years, but he also kept it very vintage. There's no satellite dishes in the front, and he kept the neon sign always working. So he gets a lot of fashion shoots there and music videos. But then he said, "Hey Dan, if you want to make a feature, no one's ever shot a feature here before. We're closed in the winter. Everyone on the cast and crew can stay here." I was like, "Well, when you get a location that good, you make a movie."
It's so funny. It's so funny how much circumstances will dictate an indie movie. Like, I've got a lake house. Could you make a horror movie here? Like that
Yeah.
does occur. Freedom Punk asks, how much fun was it to work with Bruce Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, come on. He's Bruce Campbell. He's awesome. And, you know, people think of him as like an icon in the horror world, but he's really also an icon in the indie film world. I mean, the stories of him, and we were working with Ted Raimi too, Sam's brother, you know, and they would just tell us stories about, you know, putting together Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 and, you know, just out of spit and bubblegum, you know, back in your old days in Detroit. So it was great. We had thought about working together on the last film, and the schedule didn't work out for that. On this one, he was originally going to play a different character. He was going to play the character that Vondy Curtis Hall winds up playing. But then he'd had some surgery, and that didn't work out. But then I said, how about doing the voice of Nixon? And it turned out that he was a huge aficionado of Nixon and Watergate. When he was 14 in Detroit growing up, he spent the summer, instead of playing baseball outside, he was glued to the television just watching the Watergate Senate hearings. And he and Ted had done some kind of Watergate comedy sketches before, where actually Ted was Nixon and Bruce was Haldeman. So it was, you know, he knew this world well. and was happy to do it. And in general, I wanted someone that could not just do a Nixon impersonation, because you can still get Rich Little, who's still alive, to do that. But I wanted someone that could really bring his own, sense of gravitas and humor and irony and performance to the role. And Bruce really does that.
Another comment here from Mateo. Plausible speculative sounds like a good movie name.
Yeah, well,
Michael Seegers, this film will open in theaters. It's actually, I saw it in theaters a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Is it still doing its theatrical run? And when
it is, yeah. We've had a 60-city theatrical run around the country. And we're kind of at the tail end of that. It's playing in Omaha starting tonight for 2 weeks. Omaha's where I'm from, so and a lot of our backers and cast and crew were kind of from here. Omaha Steaks was a sponsor in the film. I don't know if you noticed the product placement in there, but it's in there. But then it's going to keep playing in a few other theaters in West Virginia, in Wichita next week, in Orlando next week. It's still playing in Chicago at the Wilmette Theater sporadically over the next few weeks. And then starting next Tuesday, July 5th, the VOD and digital release comes out in the US and Canada. And then July 11th, the VOD and digital comes out in the UK and Ireland.
Cool. Another question here, Michael Seeger. How many pairs of bell bottoms did the costume designer have to come up with?
That's a good question. Not that many bell bottoms, because it's interesting, because 74 is a very specific, time. I mean, I guess there are bell bottoms, but there were, but it was before disco, but kind of post hippie era. But we had an amazing costume designer, Sarah Kogan, she collects old period patterns, paper patterns. And so she would be up 24 hours at night just sewing new costumes from these old patterns. And so we get some really amazing sort of period appropriate costumes that fit the actors.
Cool. Another question here, Jack D. Ripper, favorite 70s political thriller?
3 Days of Condor,
Yeah.
Klute, The Conversation, all of those, All the President's Men, obviously, but for other reasons. But yeah, I mean, I always kind of pitched this early on as 3 Days of the Condor meets Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but a little funnier than either of those. And, maybe we got that. I don't know.
It's definitely funny and has its serious moments. So there you go. Shaun Jamir, how long did it take to write, Dan?
That took a while. It took, largely because I wasn't paying my writer. So so he had other things come up. But we took our time with it. We wanted to get it right. So it was like 2 years, from when we first kind of had the beginnings of the idea, 2.5 years, maybe. It definitely, we took our time with it because, look, you can, there's a lot of the shooting should happen fast on an indie film, but the writing, you have the luxury, you should have the luxury to take your time and get it right. And it's an intricate plot. So there's a lot of pieces that we had to kind of try to get right. And hopefully we got some of them right.
Cool. Masters.
So it had nothing to do with the, I was gonna say it had nothing to do with the 50th anniversary of the break-in then.
Well, that worked out nicely. So yeah, a week ago was the 50th anniversary of the Watergate break-in.
Yeah, because you opened pretty close to that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was on purpose. I mean, once we realized that was coming around the corner, the distributors that we worked with, they definitely noticed that, and I told them about it, and so they, and it was a great way to get extra press. People are doing lists of all the Watergate films. I'm surprised no one's done a list called Dick Pics, Nixon in Film. Chris, if you want to put that together, it's all yours.
There is a movie called Dick. There is a movie called Dick.
Which is a great movie. So yeah, I mean, there's a great body of work, including Altman's film Secret Honor, which was great. But we started playing at film festivals in the fall. So the film has already played at 21 festivals on 8 continents, four continents, 8 countries. And so we had a really good run with it at film festivals, and we tried to go for mostly live ones. And then we kind of took our time, but honestly, people weren't coming to theaters before. So we're like, let's just wait till this 50th anniversary, and hopefully people will start to be coming to theaters now. and so far so good. Yeah.
Masters of the Nerddom ask, was it difficult to film a period piece based in the 70s? How much creativity goes into planning for a film like this?
Yeah, the key thing is location, location, location. If you've got period locations, because in addition to the motel, my writing partner Daniel, just coincidentally, his aunt worked at a diner that was just down the street from the motel that was also a period looking diner. So once you have that, and what was great about the motel too is he had a lot of stuff. He had couches and chairs and TVs and a spiral staircase, things like that, which we could move around. We had a great production designer, Monica Dabrowski, and so she spent a lot of time moving things around. And then the key thing was we bought like 4 reel-to-reel players on eBay, which were still working, which is pretty amazing. And they weren't that expensive, and a couple of IBM Selectrics too. So once you get a couple of those key props in, and then, as I say, the costumes, it's a lot easier than you think, or a lot less daunting, I guess. On my last film, Bernard and Huey, about 10% of that was set in like 1988. And we shot like a whole 1988 New York subway scene in my garage in Culver City, and that kind of taught me, like, okay, don't be afraid of period. If you're an indie filmmaker, like if you're smart about it or reasonably smart, you can pull it off. And
not just that, I think the cars really sell it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We have a
really
Dodge Dart swinger in the film.
I love that. I love the Dodge Dart. When I saw that near the beginning of the movie, I'm like, I'm sold. I had a girlfriend in high school who had a Dodge Dart.
I'm just impressed you had a girlfriend in high school, Chris.
Well, first of all, everyone should be surprised by that fact. Yeah. Another comment here from Scott Slaughterbeck. This is now on my list. 70s politics, closed down motel, Long Island. That's great. And then Solomon Thornton asks, as we're wrapping up, we're going to be wrapping up here real quick. Solomon Thornton asks, what is the best advice for a new filmmaker?
Marry well.
No, actually, you've told this advice. You should get specific, Dan, because not everybody knows the. No, but seriously,
I mean, you need some kind of a life partner or professional relationship or family that will help you, not just financially, but just emotionally get through this stuff, because it ain't easy. We laugh about it. It sounds fun to make a little indie movie, but it's not. It takes a lot of years. You can take 5 years getting ready to shoot, for a week and a half, and then there's a global pandemic. And it's like, you need some sort of emotional backstop to make it through these things. That's the number one thing. And just make friends, because you're going to need them to help you in all kinds of ways, So, and go to film festivals, because that's where you meet friends, because you've just lost a bunch of your friends because you just took a bunch of their money. So you need new friends. Whatever.
I want to point out the serious side of this advice you're giving, because I'm serious for a second, just for everybody listening. They think you're joking. Haha. I know your wife. I know your kids. I've met your kids many times. And your wife is a doctor. She has what one would describe as a solid career. She has a job and a career. And so what you mean by this is, like, when you say marry well, just, you've got to have a partner, whether it's a married partner or a partner in life, or even a business partner, someone to support, not just financially, but also like getting through the times when you're not making money and when you are making money. I was fortunate enough that, I had a partner that supported me, and then I could go off and do artisty things. I'm going to do this project, hope it makes money. And then fortunately you kind of learn that, like, making money, that needs to be a part of the equation, at least, or at least considered. And so it's important to have like that support system, build your team, whether it's someone you're married to or not. But so just, there you go. Michael Seagriff says, that's exactly right. To think a filmmaker would answer some of silly questions boggles my mind. Macadema says, Film Threat interviews are the movie version of the TV show Inside the Actor Studio. The info Film Threat presents is priceless. Thank you for that. And then Flaccid Phoenix asks, which shot in the movie was the most fun to shoot?
There's a couple of long oneers in there. There's one where they're listening to the tape, where literally it's like a 5-minute shot, and everybody, what was great about it was everybody on the crew, and we didn't have a huge crew, but everyone was doing something. People were moving things around. People were moving the dolly, pushing the camera, doing the sound. There's my producers hidden, covered by a blanket and a TV, yelling out cues. It was, and then when, and it took like 9 takes to get it right. But when we got it right, we were like, everyone was like, yeah, that's it. We nailed it. And I think that's great because it really reinforced that film is a collaborative art form. The actors are doing their thing. Everyone's working together. And when it does come together like a perfect plan, like in the 18, you can really embrace and celebrate it. And yeah, so that was good. The other thing, by the way, just to kind of throw in here some relevance to this whole thing is that, and Alan asked about the timeliness of the 50th anniversary of Watergate, but also the January 6 hearings that are going on now. Like just the other day, there was the whole Cassidy Hutchinson, revelations. And thematically, that is very similar to our film, which is about a 25-year-old White House young low-level woman working there who has the power to bring down a president and the courage to do it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like our tagline come alive here. So even though it's Watergate and you may not know anything about Watergate, like thematic, and as Chris said, you don't really need to know anything about Watergate. Thematically, there's a lot of relevance and salience to the film now, I think.
And wrapping up with a final comment here, Jack D. Ripper. Hey, Dan, have you seen RRR? Chris won't stop talking about it.
I have not seen it, but I do know that Chris has not stopped talking about it. I listen to Chris and Alan all the time.
It's so funny. Dan tells me, because he'll text me and he'll like, you go on these walks and you listen to the show because Film Threat, it's actually on Spotify also, the Film Threat podcast, livecast, whatever we're calling it.
As is our soundtrack, by the way. Our soundtrack just hit Spotify.
Oh my God, that's all. I love it. I love how easy it is. Like, I am a Spotify guy. I'm not, whatever you think of it, fine. But I get my movie soundtracks in there, and I'm doing Attack of the Doc. We're actually doing a soundtrack to the documentary, which you'll probably think I'd be out before the end of the year. It's an easy way to release. It used to be a pain in the ass to release movie soundtracks. Now you can just do it independently. So what are you looking for, Dan?
I am looking for something. We have some vinyl discs of the
that's right.
part of the soundtrack. Oh, here they are. So if you come to a live screening, this is why you got to show up wherever I am, is we have some of these for sale. This is because there's like a year backlog getting full 12-inch vinyl, but we got these flexi discs.
Oh, those are the ones that would sometimes come in like Mad Magazine.
Exactly. Although these were made in the Czech Republic, strangely enough, because that's the only place you can do them now. So, but the whole digital soundtrack is available on iTunes and soundtrack as well.
And Dan,
and I wrote the songs, Chris.
Dan, where can people find you on social media, and where can they get more info about the film?
Yeah, so the film 18, and I was just updating the website, 18 and a half, so it's the number 18 and then spelled out and a half movie.com. I'm at danmirvish.com. On social media, I'm D Mirvish or Dan Mirvish on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and 18 and a half too. So if you find Chris Gore, I'm usually right behind him. I do whatever Chris does on socials. I still have a great clip of Chris saying, "MySpace is the best thing. Oh my God, you gotta love MySpace. Everyone get on MySpace."
Oh my God.
Oh, we need that.
It's the promo. If you search on YouTube, it's the promo for the open house, the musical DVD. Because we had that release party at my house in Christmas. Right.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah.
Wow, I've said some ridiculous things.
Oh, I know.
I've said some incredibly ridiculous things.
I'll send you guys a link. Yeah.
Dan, thank you for being on the show. The movie comes out July 5th?
5th, yeah. Any day now.
On digital, and see it in the theaters if you can. And if you're running a Dan, pick up one of those 18 and a half records. I think that's awesome. Dan, this is not the last time you're going to be on the show. You've been on the show before. You will be on again, I promise you.
Yeah.
And look up all of Dan's stuff on IMDb, his whole catalog. And I think someone mentioned earlier, maybe you brought it up, Dan is one of the founders of the Slam Dance Film Festival, one of my personal favorite film festivals, very punk rock, very DIY.
Very hot tub.
very hot tub. I've been in a hot tub with Dan where we did a panel in a hot tub once.
Yep.
In Park City, Utah. And also like Slamdance has an app that you can get, and what they'll do, I think it's cheap. It's like $20 and or $10, and you get like all the movies playing Slamdance you can watch in a week. It's fantastic. Dan, have fun in Nebraska. Are you working on a new movie? Can you talk about it?
No, this is I'm working on this. Like if you're not working 100% on the movie you're working on, you're not doing enough. So no, there's talk about turning 18 and a half into a play and maybe as expanding as a TV series. So there's some of those ideas we're looking into, but this is going to keep me busy for a while. I still have to work on DVD and Blu-ray. And by the way, let me just say, every one of my films has had a film threat quote blurb on the poster or the DVD box.
Well, there you go.
That goes back 30 years.
So this is some advice for indie filmmakers out there. If you want to get a quote to throw on your DVD box, poster, whatever, we're the place to come. Dan, enjoy yourself in Nebraska. Find the coolest dive bar in Nebraska. I mean, and let me know what it is, because when I go there, I'll check it out. Dan, have a great rest of your day, man. Everyone support this film. Take care, Dan.